Part 38. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 373. I went downstairs to go to the bathroom. Now every time I move my shoulder, I feel severe pain. It's pretty good. One shot in the left shoulder and one shot in the right shoulder. It's symmetrical. Since moving into this house, Han Qian seemed to have never used the bathroom on the second floor. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror and looking at his rebandaged shoulders, Han Qian smiled innocently. It turns out that warmth also has a sensible side. While Han Qian was studying how to read the wound on the back of his head, warm footsteps came from the second floor. Wow 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 wow, it's hailing. When Nuan opened the bathroom sliding door arrogantly, hiding half of his body behind the wall, and said with a naive smile, "I can cook instant noodles, but you didn't let me in the kitchen, so I bought bucket noodles and sausages." What a lovely girl. The loveliness brought by warmth to Han Qian is always greater than the temptation brought by her appearance, figure, and family affairs. This eldest lady is really cute. At 12:30 in the evening, young Master Han and Nuan, who was causing trouble in the city and were nicknamed Little Phoenix, were squatting on the balcony and eating instant noodles. They watched the hail hitting the glass and making a crackling sound. Han Qian didn't like spicy food very much. Since I don't like seafood either, Wen chose the spiciest spicy huangshang, a mouthful of noodles and a mouthful of milk. Nuan raised his head and watched Han Qian keep making siha and siha sounds. Not spicy. Han Qian looked at Wen Nuan dumbfounded. He stood up and went to get another box of milk. Wen took the milk and whispered, "Brother Qian, I seem to have grown again. It's so annoying." Judging from the warm and melancholy look on her face, she really doesn't like that she is growing taller. She likes those cartoon, cute, round clothes, but they don't have that smell when they are worn on her. Han Qian is sitting on the warm on the floor tiles, he said softly. "How high are you now?" "When we got married, I was 1.72 meters tall. Today I measured at home and it seems that I'm almost 1.75 meters tall. I don't want to grow any longer. Don't let Yan Qingqing hear this, she will fight you tooth and nail." I took a photo of her, and then she told me about the breakup fee you gave her. "Brother Qian, how did you get the shares from Li Dahai? Tell me, lest Lao Wen if you ask me after you find out, I don't even know what to say." Han Qian put down the fork in his hand, looked at the report outside the window, narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Go and get me a cigarette. Aunt Xian said you shouldn't think about smoking recently." Perhaps only warmth would stop Han Qian from smoking, and only she would dare. The one who is favored has no fear of saying anything. But Han Qian still took out a cigarette from the drawer, but was snatched away by Wen Nuan. He cut off half of it with scissors and gave it back to Han Qian. Han Qian was smoking a cigarette and thinking about the plan. There were accidents, surprises, and more. More is still a gamble. Nuan looked at Han Qian with his chin in his hands and said softly, "Since when did you want Li Dahai's shares?" "Well, after Li Dongsheng and I had our first fight, I didn't have this idea at the time. It was Glory Qianling who lured me into the circle step by step. At that time, Sul Yang and I had a conflict with Li Dongsheng, because Qianwan got involved in my plan because of something, so I can't watch her being beaten, right?" Han Qian stood up and opened the window, and then quickly closed the window. It was so cold. When Nuan dragged his chin and looked at the two people reflected in the glass, wondering, "Did Li Dongsheng give money to Wan?" Han Qian smiled and nodded. "Well, what I said after that was more unpleasant. You know what words I don't like to hear the most. Then I took action. I didn't get any advantage. Then Qianling came and took away 5% from Li Dahai's hands. After that, in the hospital, I felt uncomfortable. Why should I take action and you take the shares, right? Anyone else would feel uncomfortable. Qianling saw what I meant. She said that if I could give Yan Qingqing some, the shares in her hand can be transferred to Yan Qingqing, and she agreed as soon as her head got hot. As he spoke, Han Qian carefully looked at Nuan's face. A little bit of a change. Han Qian hurriedly said again. Then I also thought that Li Dehai would not be reconciled to losing 5% of his shares. He did not dare to deal with Qianling, and his eyes would fall on me. I thought I still owed you 4 million. We can't just fall into the hands of Li Dehai. By the way, I even slapped Zhang Qin. How can those who turn hostility into friendship be like that? Then I went to find Gao Jixing and prepared to join hands with him to take away the shares in Li Dehai's hands. Gao Jiji was given a bait. He took away 12% of the shares and gave Yan Qingqing 8% of the breakup fee. The main purpose was to deceive him and make him think that Yan Qingqing would no longer be a threat to him without me making suggestions. Nuan turned his head and said with a tilt of his head. 8% plus the 5 in Qianling's hand is 13. Gao Fulai will be suppressed by Yan Qingqing. Why did you choose Gao Fulai? He is not a good person. Han Qian took away the instant noodle bowl and came back with a rag in his hand, wiping the windowsill and smiling. Because Gao Jingcheng is the most suitable. He has been in glory for a long time. He has been a vice president, and when a little girl is on top of him, he has already started to roar in his heart. He has money, beauties, and luxury cars. The only thing he lacked was power, and he couldn't refuse the 12% figure. Lu Sheng had 50% among the singers, and Qianling had 25%. He would take 100%. 12 is the most suitable and reasonable. If it is too much, he will panic. If it is less, he will not be satisfied. There is another reason that is relatively simple. Among these goals, only Gao Fulai is willing to spend money. Later, after learning a piece of news, I feel more at ease. When Nuan asked softly, "You're talking about his relationship with Lu Shenga? Right? I understand this, but I still don't understand that the first person you are looking for is Gao Fulai." Han Qian nodded and replied seriously. Yes, I was nothing at that time. The Mid-Autumn Festival party had not happened yet, and no one would treat me as a piece of cake, so I could only choose Gao Jixi. Because he was suspicious, he was easy to deceive and suspected me and Yan Qingqing. He is worried about my relationship with Qianling, and also knows about our relationship. I need to use his financial resources to make another person's heart fall in love. Who? Wu Siguan, Li Dongshen's girlfriend. Use money to impress Wu Siguan? Li Dongshen's family is also very rich. If you compare, my family is not as wealthy as the Li family. After Han Qian heard this, he reached out and touched Nuan's head, but was slapped away by Nuan and said angrily, "Little Han Qian, where are you petting the dog?" Unexpected, unexpected. Although the Li family is rich, the money belongs to Li Dongsheng, and Zhang Qin will not let Wu Sijuan become her daughter-in-law. The family is not in the right place, and the household is not right. Besides, there will be no shortage of women around a dandy like Li Dongsheng. Tempting, Wu Sijuan knew in her heart that her novelty would not last long, and the temptation of 10 million was enough to make her heart beat, but I didn't expect her heart to be more cruel than I thought, and she would be more cruel to herself. The word curiosity was written on Nuan's face, and he looked at Han Qian with a pair of big eyes and said eagerly, "Why is she so cruel to herself?" Han Qian closed his eyes, took a deep breath, exhaled, and said in a deep voice, "Last night, she lay on Li Dehai's bed and recorded the video, otherwise my plan would not succeed." Nuan Wen stood up suddenly, with disbelief in her eyes. In Nuan's mind, there were some things that only two people could do when they got married. Now that she heard Li Dongshen's fiancé lying on the bed of her future father-in-law, she felt that her three views had been changed. Subverted, my brain short-circuited for a while. Nuan squatted down again and said seriously. What you mean is that when you started preparing to deal with Li Dehai, your status and reputation were not enough, and you didn't have money yet, so you chose Gao Fulai and asked him to make a financial promise to you, and then you took this promise go and promise Wu Sigwan that on the birthday dinner day, Lu Guangming and others were cooperating with you in acting, making Li Dehai drunk and then giving Wu Sigwan a chance, right? Clever. But what about Li Dehai and you? Han Qian smiled when he heard this, turned around and looked at Wen Nuan. His eyes were full of confidence, and he smiled. A fight to the death? With whom to fight? Wu Sigwan did everything. Even if the thing fails, I can still give Wu Sigwan a sum of money, but it won't be too much. But what about Li Dehai? With the temperament and character of Lu Shenge and Qianling, did he return to glory? Once this matter is exposed, Glory's stock market will plummet, and the reputation of its properties, shopping malls, hotels, and manufacturers will plummet. The profits that evaporate in one day will be an astronomical figure. Both Qianling and Lu Shenge will lose their money. Li Dehai is not a person who has lost half his life. He has a wife and children. He doesn't dare to fight. In addition, you have to consider one thing. If Zhang Qin knows that Li Dehai and Wu Sigwan are having an affair, Li Dongshen knows about his father. How would you feel if you raped your girlfriend? Li Dehai didn't dare to fight to the death, so he could only agree obediently. Wen Nuan nodded ignorantly, and then asked softly. Gao Fulai's performance is now 12%, and Yan Qingqing's is 13%. Aren't you afraid that Lu Shenge will give Gao Fulai some more? Han Qian stopped laughing and said angrily. When you have absolute control over the company, will you give the shares to others? Gao Xingcheng can work with me to take down Li Dehai. Why can't Lu Shenge doubt that Gao Xingcheng and I can take care of him together? Why are you so stupid? Nuan stretched out a finger, closed his eyes and shook it. No, I call it kindness, you call it insidious. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 374. Finally, Nuan gave Han Qian's plan a name. White Wolf with Empty Gloves. Then he leaned closer to Han Qian and whispered. Brother Qian, are you harming Lin Mend? I don't like that woman named Luo Shen. Her eyes are very aggressive. Han Qian hugged Worm's shoulders, and the two guys sat on the floor tiles and looked at the night sky outside the window, swaying their bodies and recalling Lin Zongheng's fiancée. Han Qian had no impression of her, except that her name was a little special. Is there anyone named Luo? I know someone named Luo Tianyi. Holding a warm shoulder, Han Qian said softly. She may have a little astigmatism in her eyes. Generally, if you have eye problems, your eyes will look different when you look at other people. What are you doing with this stinky bitch like her? Eat and drink enough. Let's go. Get out of bed. Then it turned out that she really had sex, and Nuan went back to her room. She was very dishonest in sleeping, and was worried about touching Han Qian's wounds at night. Han Qian went back to the room, took off his pajamas, and prepared to have a good night's sleep. Han Qian was very tired after the injury. Just enduring the physical pain consumed a lot of his energy. When he woke up again, the sky outside was already white. He touched his phone and looked at it. It was already 10 o'clock. When he got up, he pulled the wound on his shoulder. The severe pain made him wake up instantly. He put on his pajamas and held his shoulder. When I walked out of the bedroom, I heard chirping downstairs. Han Qian stopped walking halfway up the stairs. Very complete. It's all here. For a moment, Han Qian felt that his home was so small. Wen Nuan was sitting in the middle of the multi-person sofa. On the left was Yu Shixi, on the right was Ji Jing. Yan Qingqing was half lying on the imperial concubine's couch, and Cai Qinghu was sitting alone in a long skirt. Sofa, legs crossed. Tong Yao has not been found yet, but it is certain that she is also downstairs. Without being discovered, Han Qian tiptoed back to the second floor. He was curious about what these girls were doing together and sat on the first step of the stairs to eavesdrop. Yan Hu, please stop showing off your share. Do you want me to stimulate you? It was a warm voice, full of disdain, and then Yan Qingqing's voice came. Showing off? This is the real deal, are you envious? I have 27% of the shares. Am I envious of you? Ah. The sneer belonged to Cai Qinghu, and then her voice came out again. How many stinky money? Glory is more than 13% or enjoyment is more than 27%. Yan Hu, Wen Zhuying, I don't have time to argue with you here. Wen Zhuying, you said we have a small meeting, I'll come over, okay, what next? Oh, I almost forgot, please make some noise for me. My husband is still sleeping. If I wake you up, you will be scolded. I came to you to talk about seducing Canon. He doesn't dare to touch me. Doesn't mean you dare to touch you, I don't want my husband to worry about you. What do you mean, my husband? Yes, Nuan, you have to ask my boyfriend what he means first. Don't give orders here. The smell of gunpowder between the three girls became stronger, and Han Qian was already lying on the floor, desperate for life. Husband, boyfriend. Are you going to kill me? Then Han Qian heard the sound of nursery rhymes. Go da pao? I also heard a general idea when I talked to Nuan yesterday. You are all serious entrepreneurs, civil servants, and white-collar workers in the company. You can't do what Tu Xiao did, and you can't do it either. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard Cai Qinghu's question. Teacher Tong, please explain what it means to be a serious civil servant on the surface. Who is not serious? Nursery rhyme sneered. Whoever is not serious knows it in his heart. I have no intention of arguing with you. Guandago's temper must not admit that he has suffered this loss. His head has been opened by others. How can he still hang out if he doesn't regain his face? They say black and white. Tell, are you good at black things? The words fell and Wen Nuan continued. I'm good at white. The nursery rhyme then continued. Isn't Cai Qinghu from the Yamen Gate? It's not up to you whether Go De Peo is guilty or not. Don't show off your full sense of justice here, and Go De Peo's provocative words and threats against Han Qian can already be filed. Cai prosecutor, you have overlooked one thing. You were with Han Qian when he shot. You knew better than anyone that Kui Lila did not come. Didn't you think of connecting Go De Peo and Feng Lun? Even if Go De Peo is innocent, that's okay. Investigate who told him that Han Qian would appear at the party. Did your civil servants pay for it? Tong Yao was very talkative, especially when it came to ridiculing others. Cai Qinghu couldn't find the words to counterattack several times, so he snorted arrogantly. At this time, Ji Jing spoke in a low voice. Didn't you show up at Lin Men's party? Didn't you plan it with Lin Men and Lin Zongheng and his son to get the eldest nephew injured? Nuan followed. Impossible. Doesn't Lin Men dig a hole and jump into it? As the words fell, the nursery rhyme sounded again. Wen Nuan, have you and Han Qian lived together for 3 years and learned nothing about coquettishness? Forgive me for being blunt. You are so stupid that you can think of nothing to do with Lin Men and his son. Why can't he do the opposite? The more obvious it is, the more obvious it is. If no one believes it, the more likely it is that he did it. You told me that Go De Peo said at the party that Han Qian took what he should take and sat where he should sit. First of all, This sentence shows that what Han Qian took is nothing more than what he has in his hands now, but you are thinking what is the use of it even if someone like Go De Peo gets it? Han Qian, who was on the second floor, kept nodding his head. The monster's brain is very useful. Although he is usually stupid, he is quite smart now. At this time, the nursery rhyme was uttering. Just arrest him because he has a relationship with Feng Lun. You can still suspect him if he is not guilty, right? We will see who is anxious then. We can also get some information through interrogation. With your identities, it is not difficult to frame Go De Peo for some crimes, right? Just now, right? Director Yan who got 13% of the shares? Director Wen who got 27% of the shares? And our young and promising prosecutor CAI? You don't have to be so upright. Of course, you have to do this kind of thing. I am a teacher. To set a good example for the children. Yan Qingqing countered. It's easy to say, but how to do it? Nursery rhyme sarcastically said. Ask me? Was Han Qian sure that he could get you 13% of the breakup fee? Cai Qinghu said immediately. Framing. Framing requires evidence. Nursery rhymes are on the road. You produced evidence when Han Qian was arrested last time. Don't look at me, Wen Nuan. Go De Peo broke his toes when Han Qian did not dare to go to the hospital, which means there is something wrong with him. He was afraid of going to the hospital and being investigated. How about you? Can you transfer your energy from poaching warm corners to Go De Peo? There was silence on the first floor. After a long time, Yu Shisai, who had never spoken before, spoke. Cai Qinghu, does Go De Peo have a history of drug abuse? Have. Cai Qinghu's answer is decisive, and Yu's poems are right. A dog is destined to never change his habit of eating shit. So I caught him for a urine test and asked him where he got the drugs. Besides, he had just been released from prison. He must have no money on him. Drugs are so expensive. If he found out where his money came from, he could almost be arrested. Who are the people who are instigating this behind the scenes? Can you use your brains? Is there Han Qian who is giving you advice, and your brains have become decorations? I agree with what Yu Shisai said, Wen vase, Cai vase, Yan, flower pot. Nurse rhyme, I'm fighting with you, why should I be a flower pot? All the girls said in unison. Because you are the shortest. Vote vote. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 375. The women downstairs started to use their brains. Listening to their plans, Han Qian felt chills on his back. It would be a bit scary for these women to use their brains, and their movements were very fast. Passing the gap in the stairs, he saw Cai Qinghu, who was closest to him, holding a tablet and talking on the phone. It seemed that he had already asked the yeomanman to arrest people. Investigation found that Go De Peo had been released from prison for a long time, it had been less than half a year. It was time, but he never showed up. How could a gambling addict like him resist taking drugs for half a year? What Cai Qinghu hates most is drugs. Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing didn't react at all. What they meant was that they were waiting for Cai Qinghu's results. They would find someone familiar with Go De Peo, preferably his former younger brother, and pay a lot of money to frame Go De Peo and Feng Lunyue. Relation. Although he was in a hurry, Han Qian still went downstairs. As soon as he came downstairs, Ji Jing stood up quickly and whispered. Nephew, do you want some water? I'll get some water. After finishing speaking, Ji Jing didn't wait for Han Qian to speak. She got up and went to prepare water. Yan Qingqing slapped her on the forehead, closed her eyes and sighed helplessly. It's over, I'm sick again. For Jijing, there was nothing the women could do. She didn't speak up no matter how they quarreled. She backed away when there were other girls around Han Qian, but she clearly told these women that I like Han Qian. Han Qian took the water glass from Jijing and looked towards the living room, wondering. I heard Teacher Tong's voice just now. Where is this person hiding? After finishing his words, Tong Yao's head emerged from behind Yan Qingqing's sofa and frowned. What are you looking for me for, scumbag? Scumbag. Han Qian didn't think this word was a compliment, so he put down the water glass and replied angrily. I miss you so much. Then he found that the girls on the sofa had all raised the pillows in their hands, and Tong Yao curled his lips and said sarcastically. My master dislikes your little fishy body, and only a sneaky cat can like it. As soon as these words came out, the pillows in the hands of Yu Shisai and Cai Qinghu froze in mid-air. Then they looked at each other, smashed the pillows at each other, and shouted in unison. You have a problem. The words are the same. The two were stunned for a moment, then said in unison. I'm innocent. When the two women were staring at each other, Tong Yao walked out from behind the sofa, bent down and tilted her head in confusion. I said you're a sneaky cat, why are you two so excited? Yu Shisai's expression returned to calm and he said softly. I came to visit my aunt recently and my back hurts. I don't know how Secretary Cai is doing. Cai Qinghu replied generously. I'm a cat, and I'm going to steal Han Qian. What's wrong? Let me ask you, what's wrong? Is it illegal? This is really not illegal. The girls have a tacit understanding not to mention the canon. Han Qian does not want to be involved in this battle. He goes into the bathroom to wash up and brush his teeth. Jijing stands aside to serve him, including facial cleanser, toothpaste, and toothbrush. Towels, etc. As long as Han Qian stretches out his uninjured hand, what he wants will fall into his hands. Han Qian wiped his face with a towel and looked at himself in the mirror. His face was sallow and his lips were colorless, especially his hair. Han Qian grabbed his hair and sighed softly. Looking at Jijing in the mirror, Han Qian whispered, "Road. Can you cut your hair?" Jijing tilted her head and asked softly in confusion. Scissors. Electric clippers. I won't. Han Qian groaned, put down his towel and shouted towards the living room. Nuan Nuan, do you have time to shave my hair? Then a warm voice came. Come out, the bathroom is too small. Han Qian's body has never been strong and he has no obvious muscles. Tong Yao looked at Han Qian who was sitting quietly on the small bench waiting for his hair to be shaved and curled his lips. How do you survive to this day with a body like a weak chicken? Since you are injured, what do you want to eat? Jijing and I will buy it. Han Qian tilted his head and thought for a moment, then smiled. I want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs. Then buy stick bones. They are highly nutritious when simmered in soup. Tanjeo got up and took her bag and took Jijing to buy groceries. Wenwen held Han Qian's hair with an electric clipper and gave him a haircut. This scene seemed strange to Yan Qingqing, so she stood up and came over. He frowned and said doubtfully. Han Qian, did you want to save 30 yuan before letting Nuan Nuan give you a haircut? Is that right? Han Qian smiled and didn't answer. Nuan Nuan, who was skilled in haircutting, glanced at Yan Qingqing, lowered his head and cut the hair seriously, and said softly. I have been cutting Han Qian's hair for 2 years, and I even studied for half a month. Do you really think I only know how to eat? Wen Nuan really didn't lie about this. This was a year after getting married. At that time, Han Qian had to save money to send money to his family, so he could save a little money on food every day. Han Qian's bargaining was also because I learned this through practice, and going out for a haircut was too expensive. At first, Han Qian cut his hair to the shortest length in one go, which would last a long time. However, each haircut still cost 20 or 30, and he still couldn't bear to do it. Gritting her teeth and stomping her feet, she bought an electric hair clipper. The first time she cut her hair in front of the mirror in the bathroom, she was discovered by Wen Nuan. On a whim, the eldest lady decided to give Han Qian a haircut no matter what, but the result was almost as good as a dog chewing. Wen Nuan signed up for a class in a fit of anger, in her words. "I can handle the company, but you still can't figure it out." Since then, Nuan has been giving Han Qian haircuts. In the early days, his hair did not exceed 1 centimeter for half a year. Nuan was a typical good-looking and fun-loving person. Over time, you will become proficient. Looking at it, Yan Qingqing became interested. She also wanted to shave Han Qian's hair. She was a little unwilling to be rejected by Wen Nuan. At this time, Cai Qinghu said, "My husband has a wound on his head. Wen Nuan is more familiar with my husband than any of us. You'd better not make trouble." "Well, my husband, I'll wash your hair in a while." It was still useless to wash hair. Cai Qinghu was the one who washed Han Qian's hair when Ji Jing came back. Han Qian really couldn't believe these young ladies about this kind of service. At noon, Tanjio prepared a nutritious meal. Wolfberry, jujube, and black-bone chicken soup was for Han Qian's blood. Han Qian's expression had been very abnormal recently. Yu Shisai complained in a low voice. Last time when she was drinking at home, she almost knelt down and begged Tanjio to cook. She didn't do it. This is great, cooking so many dishes for Han Qian. Ji Jing, who had never argued, said softly. Han Qian is injured. We are not having a party. Assistant Yu, you need to know which is more serious. Seeing that another quarrel was about to happen, Han Qian hurried to smooth things over. If you can't finish eating, you can continue eating at night. I can't cook these days, and I can't keep warm. Teacher Tong has considered it. It's good, good, good. After the meal, Han Qian was frightened. Han Qian was aware of the struggle between Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing, and was used to it. Now that Cai Qinghu suddenly got involved, Han Qian was a little scared. After dinner, Yang Lan called. Han Qian, Li Dongsheng is out. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 376. Went to the hospital to remove the sutures on his head. Wen Nuan drove Han Qian to him. Several other girls also went to enjoy the relaxation of the weekend. When they arrived at the hospital, they first checked the injury on his head and checked the blood clots inside. The doctor suggested that Han Qian should be hospitalized for a while. Han Qian declined. It's not over yet. After taking some medicine and preparing to leave the hospital, Yang Lan, her daughter, and Suliang came over together. Xiao Baibei cried when he saw his uncle hanging by one arm. "Uncle, please don't die." Han Qian wanted to pick up Xiao Baibei, but unfortunately he didn't dare to use any force now. He bent down and touched the little baby's head, saying dotingly, "How could my uncle die? Don't listen to your aunt's nonsense, she is stupid." Xiao Baibei nodded vigorously. "Yes. Auntie is stupid." Everyone left the hospital together. The little girl Xiao Baibei took hold of Wen Nuan's little finger very familiarly, which made Wen Nuan, who was originally planning to hold Han Qian's hand, a little unhappy. Han Qian and Yang Lan walked side by side in front. Han Qian asked in a low voice, "How long has it been since Li Dongsheng was released from prison?" Yang Lan replied in a low voice, "I was released from prison this morning. Director Li called me and said he would come to my door in person to apologize. He made an appointment tonight." "I want to ask what you mean." "Ah. It is possible that Li Dahai really apologized sincerely, but is he alone at night? Can that shrew Zhang Qin not go? At that time, Yang Ian's character was scolded and she didn't know where to cry. It wasn't until she walked to the car that Han Qian spoke. Don't pay attention to him. Call him later and tell him that there's no need. We'll just be strangers from now on. Li Dehai is no longer a shareholder of Glory. You don't need to give him face anymore. The flu has been very serious recently. Give Xiao Baibei, have you had the injection? As soon as he heard about the injection, Xiao Baibei turned around and ran. Wen Nuan reflexively reached out and grabbed Xiao Baibei's back collar and grabbed it back. Then Xiao Baibei broke up with Wen and ran to find Uncle Sul Yang. Seek comfort. From the look on his face, he knew he hadn't been beaten, so Han Qian chuckled softly. Then let's not fight now. I didn't even plant the flowers we planted when we were young. Why don't I have such a big life? Yang Lan tilted her head and said doubtfully. Planting flowers. Han Qian found that several people were looking at him with doubtful eyes. Han Qian was confused and asked softly. You guys. You don't even know how to grow flowers? You're the one who got the vaccine. After the vaccination, a scar the size of a fingertip appeared under your shoulder, but there's no scar at all. Several people shook their heads, and Han Qian sighed. You are young. You will know when you are my age. Let's go. Go and see our brother Liang's wedding room. We left early yesterday and didn't even see it. Sul Yang patted his chest proudly. Walk. Then he smiled softly at Han Qian. Thanks. Xiao Beifei wanted to stick to Han Qian, so she had no choice but to drive Yang Ian's car. Yang Ian's mother and daughter sat in the same car with Han Qian. Yang Lan drove, Wen Nuan and Han Qian sat in the back. Xiao Beibei he refused to be in Nuan's arms and gave Nuan a nickname. Which sister? It didn't matter whether she was a witch or not. A 4 or 5-year-old girl called Wen Nuan her sister. Wen was still very happy. Sul Yang drove the car and led the way. Yang Lan held the steering wheel with both hands and drove seriously. Looking at Yang Ian's appearance, Han Qian smiled. Sister Yang, if you were asked to drive for an hour, it would be more tiring than moving bricks for a day. Are you so nervous? Yang Lan nodded and said seriously. Yes. You are a sick person and cannot have any accidents. Han Qian, you said that Li Dehai is no longer a shareholder. What do you mean? Han Qian smiled and said. Literally, you will know after the board of directors and high-level meeting on Monday. In short, you don't have to talk to Li Dongsheng now, and Li Dehai doesn't dare to take the initiative to provoke you. Yang Lan did not start at the beginning and continued to drive seriously. While looking at the house, his mother-in-law called and asked him and Nuan to go home tonight. Anyway, there was nothing to do in the afternoon. After looking at the house and saying goodbye to Sul Yang, Nuan drove home. In the car, Nuan whispered that Yang Lan was really good. Beautiful, no wonder Li Dongsheng is tempted. Then he asked Han Qian if he was tempted. Han Qian was stunned by this question and then smiled. I'm so tempted. Do you think I'm not enough of a headache now? There are many people pursuing Sister Yang. Sister Yang doesn't seem to have any thoughts in this regard. She just wants to lead Xiao Baibei to live a good life. Please help me if you can. Those who can't help should find a way. She treats me as my brother, and I treat her as my sister. It's as simple as that. Oh, what happened to the sneaky cat? Did Cai Qinghu and Yu Shisai do something to you? This question made Han Qian's heart skip a beat, and he whispered softly. I think I kissed Cai Qinghu while drunk. Oh. Wen Nuan's reaction was very dull, but Han Qian quickly explained. I definitely didn't mean it. When Lu Guangming asked me out for the first time, they drank so much that I couldn't even walk then. Han Qian was silent as he spoke, because Nuan parked the car on the side of the road, and Nuan unbuckled his seat belt. Very raw, very hard. The word effort may not be appropriate at this time, but it gave Han Qian the feeling of effort. Wen Nuan was trying hard to show that he was good at kissing, but he was still very jerky. Wen Nuan looked at Han Qian with a flushed face. She was not shy or shy. She held Han Qian's face in her hands and said seriously, "Han Qian, please forgive me. This is all I can do. I have thought about some things. I know it is difficult for you now. I also know that after something happens to you and me, you will clean up all the flowers and plants around you and treat me, take responsibility, but, I can't convince myself, and I don't want to use such despicable means to declare my victory. Yan Qingqing can bear it, Cai Qinghu can bear it, Han Qian." Wen Nuan cried and choked in Han Qian's arms. They all said that Han Qian was difficult and Yan Qingqing was under great pressure. But who would have thought that Wen Wen was the most difficult? Wen Wen was a very late maturing girl, and she didn't understand until she was 25. What is like, what is love, but when she understood it, love had already left her. Divorce was very harmful to Wen Wen. She gave up a lot, gave up her face, gave up her pride, gave up her girlish reserve, and shamelessly stayed by Han Qian's side. Didn't she want to give her love a happy ending? From the appearance of Yan Qingqing to the fierce competition from Cai Qinghu, Wen Nuan never felt sorry for Han Qian, nor did he say anything wrong with Han Qian, because this was normal, and outstanding people would always be sought after and shown love. Wen Nuan knew Han Qian and knew the shortcut, but she didn't do it. She knows that Han Qian likes her, but will love obtained through despicable means really make Han Qian happy? Will it really not go bad? Nuan knows what liking is and what love is, but she doesn't know how to deal with love. She only understands that liking someone is not to imprison him, but to accompany him to do the things he likes. This is love. If you try to restrain or force the other person, this is not love, but just raising a pet to satisfy your desire for control. Han Qian did not comfort Nuan, but patted her back gently. After a long time, Nuan raised his head and looked at Han Qian with pear blossoms in his eyes. "Han Qian, my mother told me something." Han Qian smiled. "Don't you dare tell me." Nuan nodded. Han Qian raised his head and said suspiciously, "I can guess that my grandma and my mother once said that a man is like a cat. The more you tie it, the more it wants to see what's going on outside. When you let it wander outside enough, if you chase it away, it won't even get out, is that the saying?" Let's go home." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 377. Sometimes Han Qian always unconsciously thinks that this unpleasant sentence is quite right, but why can't mom be more tactful? When he arrived at his mother-in-law's house, as soon as he opened the door, Lao Wen stood at the door with bruised eyes and said in a low voice, "Did the doctor tell you not to drink? Is there something wrong with my father-in-law's tone? There is an old saying that one should risk one's life to accompany one's father-in-law." Han Qian patted his chest and said loudly, "Without ding. Promise." Before Han Qian finished speaking, Wen Nuan had already answered for him. Han Qian could clearly see that his father-in-law's face had become lonely. He lowered his head and sighed and returned to the living room. Han Qian tugged on Wen Nuan's sleeves. Vocal channel. Xiao Nuan, Dad's eyes. Wen Nuan took off his windbreaker and hung it on the hanger, and said calmly, "There are two creatures at home. One was beaten, and the one who beat him was the other creature. Come here and I will help you take off your clothes." Han Qian asked doubtfully as Nuan carefully took off Han Qian's down jacket. "Dad, did you let the golden dragon in the fish tank be whipped? Try saying this in front of your mother-in-law. If I don't go, I won't go. I'm afraid." At this moment, the mother-in-law came out, walked to the door and looked at the young couple carefully taking off their clothes, frowning. Okay, I'll let you do it on your own. If there's something you can't solve, why do you have to give yourself a shot? You'll suffer. When the mother-in-law spoke, Han Qian kept blinking and winking, but the mother-in-law didn't seem to realize what she meant. Feeling that there was something wrong with Nuan's face, Han Qian hurriedly said, Mom, who are you listening to? My injury was caused by Kui Li. Li Jinhe curled his lips and was about to speak when Lao Wen's voice came. What nonsense are you talking about there? I'm a bitch. Han Qian and Wen Nuan stepped forward and grabbed Li Jinhe's hand at the same time. They were really afraid that she would deal with Lao Wen. But then they saw that the mother-in-law didn't seem to have any intention of taking action. Both Han Qian and Wen felt that something was wrong. Han Qian went to the living room and said in a deep voice, Dad, I have something to ask you. Let's go to the balcony to talk. Li Jinhe stood in the corridor and frowned. It's so cold outside. If you have anything to say, tell me here. After he finished speaking, Nuan grabbed Li Jinhe's arm with one hand, put his other hand around his shoulder, and whispered. Mom, you and Dad will go abroad during the Chinese New Year. Han Qian and I will go back to our hometown to celebrate the Chinese New Year. What do you think it would be better for me to buy for my mother-in-law? If you have experience, tell me. When Nuan pulled Li Jinhe back to the bedroom, Han Qian glanced at the end of the corridor, lowered his head and looked at the half-pack of cigarettes exposed in his pants pocket. Old Wen immediately understood what his son-in-law meant and grinned. Okay. I haven't taught you a lesson for a long time. Let's go to the balcony to talk. Wen Shu has always thought that her son-in-law is good. She liked him when he first got married. He is smart, hard-working, and has a good temper. Although he has no ability, he is good to his daughter. Now that he is capable and famous, he is still good to his daughter. No, because after getting rich and capable, I started to be proud and arrogant. The only drawback is that I don't really like drinking. On the balcony, Han Qian lit a cigarette for his father-in-law and whispered weakly. Dad, I did something, and I wanted to tell you about it, but you didn't want to beat me up after hearing it. When she squinted her eyes to enjoy the pleasure you brought in ancient times, closed her eyes and whispered softly. Don't ask me about my eyes. Everything is easy to discuss. Okay. If you fart, hurry up. I divided the shares of Honor Li Dehai, and Li Dehai left Honor. How much did you spend to buy the shares? When she was not at all panicked or surprised. He had seen this kind of shareholder transfer of shares many times, and now that Han Qian was capable, he was not surprised. When asked how much it cost, Han Qian was about to scratch his head in embarrassment, then he touched his nose after remembering the injury on his head and whispered. I didn't spend a penny, and I didn't take any shares. I helped Gao Jixia buy 12% for 10 million, and I gave the remaining 8% to Yan Qingqing. While talking, Han Qian kept observing his father-in-law's expression and breathed a sigh of relief when he found that there was not much change. After all, he was someone who had seen strong winds and waves. When she was silent for a while, then turned his head and frowned. Set a trap. Han Qian nodded vigorously, then felt a little dizzy, holding onto the railing and whispered. It's a trap, I guess. I explained it to Wen Nuan, and she said I was a free-handed wolf. Why didn't you keep the shares to yourself? Well, 12% must be given to Gao Fulai. At first, I needed him to provide funds. Then I thought about it. I am not suitable to take shares of glory. When I was a child, the fortune teller said that my fortune bow, I can't hold the money, and I don't want to be a shareholder. Warmth is in Changxiang. I went to Glory and confronted her. I can't do this. People in Glory scolded me behind my back. I don't care, but people in Changxiang, as for the warmth, I can't stand it, maybe it's because I'm a poor person. When she shook his head, patted Han Qian's uninjured shoulder, and said softly, "It's not that you are cheap or unlucky, it's that you have no idea about money, and you don't dare to take this money. Your parents' education for you is unmatched by many, many parents. You don't have to think about how we will teach you. According to your just do what you want. If you don't have money, you are my son-in-law. The future of the Wen family belongs to you and Xianyuan. If you have money, don't you still have to call me daddy? If you don't take this share, you won't take it? Give it to that, it's okay, Yan Qing Qing, so I don't want to say the most difficult thing to accept is a beauty, which makes you uncomfortable. Hey, woman, your eyes hurt." Looking into his father-in-law's eyes, Han Qian whispered. "Because of Ancien. Don't ask, it's your kid's fault. Are you really not allowed to drink? Then you have to look at whether Wen Nuan is allowed to drink it or not. Our family status, huh? I'm higher than you." Lao Wen glared at Han Qian and then smiled. It means that a son-in-law cannot joke with his father-in-law. As a son and a father, there is nothing he cannot say and nothing he cannot chat about. When he returned to the living room, his mother-in-law and Wen Nuan also came out. The mother-in-law frowned and wanted to ask questions. Han Qian be the first to speak. "Mom, let's eat braised pork at night. The doctor told me to add more protein." Li Jinhe looked at Han Qian and Wen Shi suspiciously, and finally chose to let them live, frowning. "I don't know how to do it. Let your dad do it for you. You two don't leave tonight. Just stay at home for a few days." Han Qian nodded, then shook his head. Li Jinhe said angrily, "Have opinions." Han Qian hurriedly explained. No, Mom, please don't get angry. I may have to go to the company on Monday to deal with some things." Li Jinhe curled his lips and said, "Young white-collar worker is still quite busy. I'm a big white-collar worker, the leader of the Liancheng team. Xianyuan and I will stay with you at home tomorrow. Are you going to stop playing mahjong tomorrow? I'm going to hit you. You two stay at home. Keep an eye on your dad. Don't go looking for vixens as soon as I go out. You two are shameless things." Han Qian and Wen Nuan looked at Lao Wen at the same time. Lao Wen looked calm and said softly, "It's just a simple communication, don't listen to your mother's nonsense. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 378. After all, Wen Nuan didn't let Han Qian drink, but he made an exception and gave Lao Wen 2 taels of wine. The 2 taels of wine made Lao Wen smile from ear to ear, shouting one after another, and Han Qian whispered to persuade his mother-in-law. "Mom, just let Dad drink some wine. Dad is not the kind of person who is addicted to alcohol. I feel so pitiful about Dad." Li Jinhe glared angrily. "Are you going to be a traitor?" Han Qian immediately lowered his head to pick up the rice and whispered, "Dad, drinking is bad for your health." Lao Wen ignored it, sipping wine and enjoying life. In fact, this was because Han Qian didn't understand Wen Shu, and he didn't know about his father-in-law's shortcomings. Lao Wen's only shortcoming was his greed for wine. He could drink as much as there was on the table. Drink at the risk of one's life. After the meal, Li Jinhe shouted that he didn't want to wash the dishes today and would wash them before breakfast tomorrow. Han Qian was used to this kind of thing. Li Jinhe suggested that the 2 children hadn't been back for a long time, and in order to bring the relationship between their mother and daughter closer. "Come play cards." Wen Nuan looked at her mother suspiciously and whispered, "Are you out of money playing cards again?" Li Jinhe is very addicted to playing cards, but she has a fixed amount of money for playing cards every month. If she loses all her money, she will stay at home or go to Wen Shi's small treasury to ask for a little from Wen. 5, 7, 8,000 a month is enough. Lost. Han Qian couldn't play with one hand, so Wen Nuan suggested a game of landlords. She still remembered the last time she played landlords, when her parents teamed up to cheat her out of money. Han Qian naturally had no objection. Han Qian spread his legs and sat on the single sofa, Wen Nuan sitting in the empty seat between Han Qian's legs. Very naturally, Han Qian hugged Wen's belly with one hand and looked at the cards in Wen's hand seriously. After a few seconds of silence, he told Wen to ask for the cards. The father-in-law and mother-in-law would definitely team up to bully Wen. If he wanted to avoid being routine, then just keep calling the landlord. With Han Qian's command, warmth is full of confidence. But the two of them still underestimated the thickness of their mother-in-law and father-in-law's face, and secretly changed cards, which caused Han Qian's card recording to always have problems. When Wen Nuan lost 1,300 yuan, Han Qian shouted that there was nothing he could do. Play, give up, give up. Li Jinhe took away the victory that Lao Wen had received, squinted at Wen and smiled. You two can go wherever you like tomorrow. Since he had money and was going to play cards again, Han Qian definitely didn't dare to say anything, so Wen Nuan said something treasonous. Look at Ancienne. She doesn't play cards or fight. She controls the company's shares and is still a doctor. No wonder Lao Wen will never forget Ancienne. Old Wen panicked when he heard this and said repeatedly, Daughter, you can't talk nonsense. Li Jinhe counted the money and replied nonchalantly, Don't worry, your dad likes me like this. After all these years, how can he still divorce? I won money and am happy. You two can go back to the room to be happy and sweet. The mother-in-law gave the eviction order. Han Qian and Wen were obedient and went back to the room. Wen took out the medicine he had taken from the hospital today. After drinking the oral medicine, Wen took out the scissors, tweezers, and gauze and pointed at Han Qian's bed. Qian was a little scared, so he took the phone and shook it at Wen Nuan. Let me make a call. I just changed the medicine on my shoulder during the day. I'll change it when I go to the hospital tomorrow. You go take a shower first. Nuan got into bed, got under the quilt, took off his clothes, covered himself tightly, and whispered back. I washed it this morning. I won't wash it anymore. Just call me and I'll find a movie to watch for a while. Han Qian sighed feebly. He washed it in the morning, but he won't wash it now. Isn't taking a shower the same as washing your face? Now that she had taken off her clothes, Han Qian was too lazy to bother with her. He took out his phone and called Wu Sijuan. Wu Sijuan seemed to be wandering outside at the moment. He was surprised to receive a call from Han Qian and asked Han Qian in a low voice if he wanted a gift. She always felt a little short-changed. Han Qian replied with a smile. There's no need to buy me a gift. I'm still worried that you will be lavish. Did Li Dongsheng contact you after he was released from prison? I contacted him and said that it was not worth it for me to do this for 10 million. He said this, but he probably hated me in his heart. I ignored him and hung up the phone. Oh, he said that he would go abroad in the next few days. Yes, I said I'm going to Canada. He can go wherever he likes. I have nothing else to do. Please be safe. Know it? After hanging up the phone, Han Qian lay on the bed and looked at the roof. Within a few seconds, Worm's head came over and rested on his uninjured arm. He held up the phone and showed Han Qian to watch Slam Dunk. Han Qian chuckled softly. Road. Don't you like watching cartoons? I want to see what's so attractive about your favorite cartoons. Looking at it now, I find Rukawaka Ed is so handsome. Isn't Sakuragi Hanamichi more beautiful than Rukawaka Ed? Nuan put down his hand, looked sideways at Han Qian, wrinkled his little nose and said coquettishly, "I am more beautiful than Haruko Akagya." Han Qian frowned and smiled. "Why are you jealous of an anime character? Say. You're cute, sleep, sleep." Han Qian closed his eyes. He always felt like he couldn't wake up since he was injured. Late at night, Han Qian felt something on his face. It was itchy. He stretched out his hand and scratched it. Then within a few seconds, it started to itch again. He frowned and opened his eyes. What he saw was a pair of big watery eyes. Han Qian was startled and sat up suddenly, then a soft cry of pain and warmth came from his forehead. The pain in his shoulders and forehead made Han Qian wake up, and he frowned and said in a deep voice, "Why are you not sleeping in the middle of the night?" As if Nuan didn't feel the pain in his forehead, he huddled sideways in the quilt and whispered back, "I had a nightmare." When he heard that it was a nightmare, Han Qian's anger subsided a bit. He lay down again, hugged him warmly, and said softly, "Don't be afraid. What did you dream about?" "I dreamed that you and Yan Qingqing got married and gave birth to a daughter named Nuan." Han Qian had a dark look on his face. It is said that he thinks about things every day and dreams about things at night. What kind of messy things have been thinking in Nuan's mind this day? Then Han Qian felt something was wrong and looked at the roof and said softly, "Warm, my shoulder is bleeding." The two guys didn't sleep in the middle of the night. After Nuan bandaged Han Qian's wound again, the two guys looked at each other and then walked to the kitchen together. After getting up, when she looked at the two guys sitting in the living room, each holding a hand in his hand. I laughed happily at the scene of eating with a spoon in a small iron basin. Then I couldn't help myself and got 2 taels of white wine. I didn't eat anything and just sat at the dining table and looked at the 2 children. When she has nothing to pursue in this life. As long as the family is here, safe and happy, drink less, smoke less, and quarrel less. As a woman, just let her do this. Han Qian saw his father-in-law sipping wine feeling lonely, put down his spoon and walked into the kitchen. Not long after, he cut off a plate of pork head and put it on the table, and said softly, "Dad, pour me some, it hurts so much that I can't sleep." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 379. On Monday, Han Qian was surprised to put on a suit and tie. Looking at himself in the mirror, he didn't look like a white-collar worker. His short haircut was fine before, but now he has a ball-cut haircut, which makes him look a bit too naughty. After going downstairs and walking out of the community, the bright red Ferrari was parked outside the community door. Cai Qinghe got out of the car and opened the door after seeing Han Qian. In the car, Cai Qinghe frowned and looked at Han Qian. "I don't really like the way you look in a suit. It always looks like a gangster." Han Qian smiled helplessly, picked up the pancakes prepared by Cai Qinghe, and said with a smile, "I don't want to either, but what can I do if I look like this? I'm going to the company for a meeting. Are you okay today? My job is to be your secretary. Doing anything else is not my job." "I understand now. As long as I follow you, I will know everything I want to know sooner or later. Don't just eat it. I have prepared soy milk for you without sugar." "Oh. Let me feed you. Drive seriously. I need to make a call. Hello. Sijuan, please pack up. If you see Lushenga's car leaving in half an hour, follow it. If there is no accident or an accident occurs, choose to give up. I want to know what happened to him and go. Is there any connection between the cannons?" After driving to the company, Han Qian and Cai Qinghe walked into the main entrance of honor side by side and walked towards the executive elevator. Han Qian walked into the conference room and looked at the person who had been waiting inside for a while. Han Qian smiled and took out his mobile phone to call. To Lushenga. Director Lu, it's time for the board meeting. Within 10 minutes, Lushenga came to the conference room with his secretary. Looking at the people sitting in the conference room, Lushenga sat in the chairman's seat and looked at Han Qian sitting opposite and said softly, "Director Qian is going to be the hands-off shopkeeper." Han Qian replied with a smile. "Director Qian has some things that he can't get out of today. I asked you to come over and attend this meeting on behalf of Director Qian." This Han Qian represented Qian Ling in the board of directors. This incident did not surprise Lushenga. A sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, as if to say that this surprise was not enough. Han Qian was not in a hurry, knocked on the table lightly, and said, "Now that everyone is here, can we start, Mr. Lu?" Lushenga, who was leaning back on the chair, sneered. "It seems that everyone hasn't arrived yet, right? What are you two doing sitting here? Go and do your business." These two people were naturally talking about Yan Qingqing and Gao Jishi. They did not speak, their expressions did not change, and they showed no intention of getting up and leaving. Han Qian smiled when he saw this. It turned out that Lushenga didn't know about Li Dehai. Han Qian leaned forward slightly and chuckled. "Don't Director Lu know that the members of Honor's Board of Directors have changed? Director Li has withdrawn from Honor's Board of Directors and transferred his shares to others. The purpose of today's meeting is to ask Director Lu whether he wants to tell the senior management and the employees of the company and the directors of Glory have been replaced. Substitution. Li Dehai quits Honor's Board of Directors?" Lushenga narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Oh? Transferring shares? I don't seem to know about this yet. Could it be that it was transferred to you, Han Qian?" Han Qian chuckled. "Director Lu is joking. I'm just a white-collar worker in the company. How can he leap over the Dragon's Gate and become such a distinguished director?" Since Director Lu doesn't know yet, Han will introduce the two new shareholders to Director Lu. After saying this, Han Qian stood up, walked behind Yan Qingqing, patted Yan Qingqing's shoulder with one hand, and said loudly, "Mr. Yan, General Manager of Honor Group, holds 13% of Honor's shares and has been promoted to the third-ranking shareholder of Honor." After saying that, Yan Qingqing handed the documents and the certificate from the notary office to little Yang Jia behind her. Little Yang Jia stood up and bent down and placed them in front of Lushenga's people. Lushenga stopped laughing. He was surprised that Yan Qingqing suddenly became a shareholder of Glory. This was something he never dreamed of. Yan Qingqing was just a tool for his training. Han Qian ignored Lushenga's doubts and smiled when he walked behind Gao Xing'ai and looked at Lushenga. Gao Jingcheng, Deputy General Manager of Honor Group, holds 12% of the group's shares and is the fourth shareholder. "Director Gao, your documents should be ready, right?" Lushenga looked at the two documents in front of him in astonishment. Yan Qingqing and Gao Jixiu unknowingly divided up the shares in Li Dehai's hands. Now the combined shares of Qian Ling and Yan Qingqing have reached 38%. The most important thing is that these two women, Qian Ling and Yan Qingqing, will choose to support Han Qian. If Gao Fulai defects to Han Qian, then Han Qian will hold 50% of the shares to compete with him. All this happened too suddenly. Lushenga suddenly thought of the scene at Linmen's birthday party. No wonder Han Qian wouldn't leave even after suffering a gunshot wound. No wonder Gao Xingcheng would go with Han Qian. No wonder Lu Guangming would suddenly come over to show his courtesy. It was that night that Li Dehai failed, but Lushenga couldn't imagine how Li Dehai could fail. This guy had never done anything to get out of the government in so many years. How could he be imprisoned just because of Li Dongsheng? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Lushenga was a little confused and whispered to the female assistant beside him. Then the assistant left the conference room. At this time, Han Qian had returned to his position, crossed his legs and looked at Lushenga with a smile. "Director Lu should already know this little thing, right?" If you want to go through with it, I will naturally cooperate with you, right? Now our three shareholders' proposal is that the business invested by Lee Dehai should be taken over by Director Gao. Director Qian's investment will be handed over to Mr. Yan, and the company will still be in charge of these two people. The board of directors will not interfere in the company's affairs. Director Lu, do you think this opinion is feasible? Lu Shengge didn't answer. He frowned and looked at the documents in front of him. Not long after, the assistant came back and stood beside Lu Shengge and whispered. Director Lu has already had a phone call with Lee Dehai. He has now boarded a plane to Canada. He has indeed transferred the shares to Director Yan and Director Gao. Director Gao takes 12%, and Director Yan after taking 8%, Lee Dehai said that he had transferred the 5% of Director Yan's money to Director Qian. Lu Shengge closed his eyes and nodded. After a long time, he opened his eyes and looked at Han Qian, raised his hand and gave Han Qian applause. Han Qian, you really gave me a surprise. It's very unexpected. It's really surprising. I never expected that you would fight back against me in this way. I really want to say something awesome to you. But you overlooked one problem. Han Qian smiled lightly and shook his head. No, I didn't ignore it. There is another thing I want to say as a bystander. Vice President Gao complained that it was unfair. My sister suffered an accident. As my brother, Director Gao didn't get the slightest apology from a guilty person. Compensation, I admit that I deceived Director Gao about this matter, but I think Director Lu will give Director Gao a certain amount of compensation, and I cannot sever the relationship with my uncle just because he said that his wife died. Gao Jishi slowly turned his head to look at Han Qian, his eyes full of puzzlement and confusion. Gao Jishi realized that he was confused. When he walked into the conference room, he still regarded Han Qian as his enemy, but now Han Qian, are they friends or foes? He couldn't tell because Gao Jingcheng did not participate in the fight between Lu Shengge and Qianling, and there was no grudge between him and Qianling. Han Qian's words just now gave Gao Xing'ai two meanings. First, Lu Shengge was indeed responsible for his sister's death, and he did not receive any compensation. Second, since my sister has passed away, do I really still regard Lu Shengge as my brother-in-law? Or does Lu Shengge regard him as his uncle? If Lu Shengge thinks that he is still his uncle, then why is Yan Qingqing always in charge of the company? Han Qian's words were like a spark falling on the grassland, and Gao Xingqing's heart was shaken. Snap, snap, snap. Applause rang out again, and Lu Shengge stood up, looked at Han Qian, and laughed loudly. Han Qian, you really underestimate you. If one day you fall into my hands, I will cut out your tongue immediately. Han Qian stood up slowly, but without looking at Lu Shengge, he looked at the other two new shareholders and said softly. Have an executive meeting. Neither Yan Qingqing nor Gao Jixin refused because it was beneficial to them. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 380. Lu Shengge left the company directly. He felt that the anger in his heart could no longer be controlled. He got into the car and pulled the assistant beside him, tearing her clothes crazily. Then thinking of his own body, Lu Shengge waved his hand and slapped her in the face. On the assistant's face. Slow down. The driver instantly reduced the speed to below 20, because he knew what was about to happen. Lu Shengge opened the car door and kicked out the handler who had been with him for 3 years, saying coldly. You're fired. It makes me sick just looking at you. The beautiful assistant fell into love and fell in the middle of the road. Her palms were bruised and her ankle was sprained. She sat helplessly in the middle of the road. She didn't know what she had done wrong. She was selected as an assistant by this man and asked her to do it. The first thing she did was to break up with her boyfriend of 3 years and the man she was already engaged to. She had been married for less than a year at that time. Under the pressure of money and power, she compromised. For the past 3 years, she had been at the company during the day and at Lushenga's home at night. However, she made some mistakes and was kicked out of her car. When she was confused and didn't know what was wrong, a white Mercedes-Benz sports car without a license plate parked beside her, and a girl squatted next to her and chuckled. "How does it feel to be kicked out of the car? I will give you a chance to get on the bus now, cherish it? Or give up?" The young assistant raised her head, looked at this familiar yet unfamiliar woman, and asked with confused eyes. "Who are you? I'm still sitting here when I get in the car. I'm also disobeying orders. 3, 2. I'll get in the car." When Wu Sijuan saw her assistant being kicked out of the car, she immediately slowed down and called Han Qian. Han Qian seemed to know about it and told Wu Sijuan in a very calm tone, "You can make friends with this woman, it will be of great help to you." After hearing the latter sentence, Wu Sijuan chose to stop the car and invited this woman to get in the car. Looking at the woman whose clothes were ruined, Wu Siguan, who chose to eat sweets after quitting smoking, said softly while holding a lollipop in his mouth. "What are your plans for the future? I know something about Lushenga. He is inhumane and schizophrenic. His heart has been twisted and he likes to control other people's lives. In fact, I don't want to save you at all, but my God has spoken, and I have to do it. What is your name?" "Yates." "Coconut juice? No wonder there are so many tears. My name is Wu Sijuan. I used to be Li Dongshen's fiancé, but not anymore. Well, I guess that my fairy asked me to help you because he took a fancy to your ability. I have some money and want to invest it. Do you have any good advice?" Yates lowered his head and said nothing, while Wu Siquan continued. "I know what you are worried about. In this city, no one can stop the people my gods want to touch, and no one can touch the people they want to protect. If you refuse, I don't mind letting my gods send you back to Lushenga. By his side, continue to be a tool for him to vent." Yates raised his head to look at Wu Siquan, then lowered his head and whispered. "I want to know who your god is. If you can't guess, I'm going to drop you off." Wu Siquan's eyes were cold, but there were many smiles on his face. Yates understood, how could she be a vase after she stood out and stayed with Lushenga for 3 years? Yates adjusted his clothes, lowered his head and said softly. "I want to go buy a suit of clothes." Wu Siguan said calmly. "I suggest you go to the hospital first." "No. I want to change clothes. Everyone has their own obsessions, and so does Yates." Wu Sijuan looked at the silk stockings and the irreparably torn chiffon shirt. He curled his lips and drove her to the department store. After buying clothes, Yates went to the barber shop and cut off the long hair that Lushenga liked. Wu Sijuan looked at the receipt in his hand and felt a little painful. Do women in that circle spend money like this? After walking out of the barber shop, Yates still did not go to the hospital. Instead, he chose Starbucks. Yates held the coffee and said softly with a calm expression. "How much can you invest?" "Let me tell you first, I have no money and I don't save any money." Wu Sijuan stretched out a hand and Yates frowned. 50 million. Wu Siquan shook his head. 5 million, this is the limit. You can do whatever you want. I don't blame you for losing money, but I won't protect you if you lose money. Okay, but I need a car now. I'm sending you a bodyguard who is not afraid of Lushenga's influence. After saying that, Wu Siquan took out a bunch of car keys from his bag and threw them to Yates, and then made a phone call. A sturdy man in a suit in his 30s walked into Starbucks, stood next to Wu Siquan, bent down slightly, and said softly. "Miss Wu." Wu Siquan ignored it, looked at Yates and said calmly. "The Mercedes-Benz outside has the license plate in the trunk. His name is Guan Hong. He is Guan Yunbiao's cousin in District 8. I will be your driver from now on to protect your safety. As for the house, I can give you a villa, but I mind if you and I live together, and I will take you to meet my fairy when I have time. Maybe he will like a married woman like you. Yates took the car and threw it to Guanhong, holding the coffee cup in his hand, and replied softly. Aren't you worried that I will betray you? Wu Siguan replied calmly. You can choose to give up. I don't blame you. If you betray me and use me as a stepping stone to cause trouble for my gods, Guanhong will let you serve the tramp until death. Yates laughed at himself. I jumped from one pit to another. Wu Siguan looked out the window and sighed. The road of life is full of pits, and it is never so smooth. It's just that the roads are different, and the troubles they bring are also different. In this pit, you can fall in love, indulge, travel, and make friends, but what you pay is hard work and fatigue. I am a woman and I don't agree with women relying on men's charity to live. Girl, work hard. Wu Sijuan stood up and left Starbucks. As soon as he went out, a strange phone call came. Wu Sijuan answered the phone and said coldly. Hello, Wu Siguan. Tong Rong, if I need help with something, don't tell anyone, just talk about it. Teacher Tong, shall I pick you up? I'll go there myself. After hanging up the phone, Wu Sijuan was a little confused. She knew that a high school teacher who was very close to Han Qian and his group could have anything to do with her. Yates from Xingbaka looked at Wu Sijuan, who was leaving until the figure disappeared. Yates took out his mobile phone and made a call to the Human Resources Department of Glory Group. Yates, assistant to the chairman, was fired just now. Please finish the labor service. After hanging up the phone, Yates raised his head and looked at Guanhong, tilted his head and said, Am I beautiful? Guanhong ordered a cup of coffee and sat across from Yates, saying indifferently. Yates's eyes widened and she opened her mouth. She saw this strong man weighing 200 pounds asking for a cup of coffee. It's safe. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 381. It's really warm. You're like this and you're crawling into your bed. If it were me, I wouldn't let you get hurt. General Han, give me a chance to try. Han Qian's wounds started to bleed again. Yan Qingqing watched Cai Qinghu handling the wound and stood aside complaining. Han Qian frowned and said in a deep voice. Can you stop acting like a gangster? Qinghu is still here. After saying this, Cai Qinghu gently poked Han Qian's wound. Han Qian gasped in pain and Cai Qinghu frowned. Meaning that she can act like a gangster if I'm not here? Han Qian, how did you know that Lu Shenga would kick his assistant out of the car? Han Qian smiled. I don't know. I just wanted Wu Siguan to follow Lu Shenga and see where this guy would go. I didn't expect that he would kick his assistant out of the car. This is a chance for this little girl Wu Siguan. I'm not God, I don't know how to calculate. Qinghu, please be gentle, it hurts. Cai Qinghu didn't dare to move. Yan Qingqing couldn't stand it anymore. She stepped forward and grabbed Cai Qinghu's arm and threw it aside, frowning. It's just a change of medicine. I see you are whining. Han Qian, please bear with it. No. I'll do it myself, Yan. Cheng. Cheng. You and I are incompatible. I want to be warm. These two idiots are really not as warm as they are. Han Qian was sitting on the sofa, breathing heavily. Yan Qingqing was tidying up the bloody bandages on the table and said while tidying them up. Why do you want Gao Jingqing's shares? Isn't it good that he has less shares than me? Han Qian glared at Yan Qingqing and said angrily. I do not want to talk to you. Han Qian, I bought stockings. What does it have to do with me? I'm wearing it. Let me take a look. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, the gaze from Cai Kinghu made Han Qian give up this thought and quickly turned around to talk. I'm just testing the waters. Now we collectively hold less than 40% of the shares. We are still passive in the direction of high execution Lushenga. Lushenga is a strong person who likes to focus on me and treat others as objects. This it is almost a well-known fact that Gao Fulai is suspicious and likes to speculate. Lushenga believes that Gao Fulai is no longer under his control, and Gao Fulai also guesses that Lu Shenghui does not regard him as his uncle. As long as the two of them, if the relationship is not good, then it will work for us. I, an outsider, helped Gao Jingxin to ask for shares, but Lu Shenghe still refused to give them. What do you think of Gao Jingxin? Cai Kinghu walked around behind Han Qian, looked at the scar on his head and murmured in a low voice. What if I give it to you? You who play politics don't come to the mall to join in the fun. You don't understand even after I tell you. As long as Mr. Yan understands, it's almost time. Let's prepare for a high-level meeting. I won't participate in the meeting between you and Gao Jixi. Yan Qingqing pointed to the lounge inside. Han Qian shook his head and whispered. I'm going to find Aunt Ji. She has delicious food there. Now Han Qian really likes to get along with Ji Jing. The main reason is that when Ji Jing is around, he doesn't have to worry about anything. Ji Jing will never speak ill of the other girls and will buy you food without fighting or grabbing. Yes, there's no reason why you don't want to get along with her, right? Han Qian came to the operations department with great interest. To his surprise, Ji Jing was not there. He had just received a call and went to a meeting. When he heard the news, Han Qian really wanted to give himself a shot. He had already said that he would hold a high-level meeting, and so did Ji Jing. One of the top executives? Where to go now? There are only 2 people left in the 5-person team. Yang Lan is not here. Lu Zhuolong seems to have not woken up all day. Little Yang Jia is also as busy as a dog now and has no time to rest. Now Yan Qingqing has become shareholders have more things to worry about. Xiao Yang Jia's workload has also increased, and of course his salary has also increased. When it comes to salary, Han Qian is not happy. He has been working for so long and has never received a salary. Thinking about it makes him heartbroken. Now Han Qian doesn't dare to go to the public relations department, for fear that Wan Fang is giving him a shoulder. After thinking about it, Han Qian decided to go and enjoy it. While looking for De Chiener to have lunch with Shan Shan, she was also causing trouble for Yan Qingqing. She was really busy. After calling Cai Kinghu, the 2 of them left for Changxiang. When they arrived at Changxiang, they saw Suliang and the others. Han Qian smiled and had better get along with these people. At noon, they got together again, Han Qian and De Chiener. Joking about Suliang and Miss Yelai secretly receiving the certificate. Suliang smiled at Han Qian. Chiener, watch. After saying this, Suliang and Miss Yelai kissed in front of everyone. This made Han Qian and De Chiener very angry. De Chiener shouted that Suliang was not a human being and was simply unscrupulous. This meal unable to eat anymore, Shan Shan glanced at De Chiener, lowered her head and whispered. Big money, I'm in love too. This sentence made De Chiener not want to eat at all. He stood up and said angrily. Take the afternoon off. Han Qian tilted his head and said. Why are you asking for leave? Dakian said angrily. Go home and kill lovers in the safe zone. Damn it, you are going too far. Who made our sister Wan Wan so angry? Nuan Nuan and Yushasai came. Nuan Nuan shouted softly to Qian Wan with a smile. Qian Wan pointed at Suliang and Shan Shan and shouted to Nuan Nuan. Vice President Wen, they are bullying me. As he spoke, Wen Nuan had already walked over, looked down at Han Qian's lunch and frowned. then raised his head and smiled at Jianwan. Why did I bully you? Suliang showed it to Miss Yalai again without thinking it was a big deal, and then left. Shanshan is in love, and Dichiener feels like no one is with her anymore. That's the sum total. Nuan smiled at Jianwan. Don't panic, isn't Han Qian still single? Why are we girls so anxious? Dichiener looked at Han Qian suspiciously, then looked at Wen Nuan, then looked at Cai King Hu, tilted his head and said. Isn't Qianer single? Doesn't he have a lot of girlfriends? Han Qian spoke quickly. Big money, don't talk nonsense, where did I get my girlfriend? Ha! Nuan sneered, and Yushasai sarcastically followed. 13% of the shares were used as breakup fee, but they still refused to break up. Master Han, how can we break up without a girlfriend, right? Han Qian turned around and said angrily. Yushasai, don't make trouble, I'll beat you up. Ha! Nuan sneered again and narrowed his eyes. Are you single? Han Qian, are you divorced? Han Qian felt something was wrong in the atmosphere, so he stood up and raised his hands. I admit my mistake, I surrender, I go home, you guys eat slowly, King Hu takes me home. If you don't want to give it away, let your girlfriend give it to you. Why? Han Qian tilted his head and looked at Cai King Hu, then raised his head and looked at Wen Nuan. You give me. Go find your girlfriend. Without giving any warmth, Yushasai spoke, squinting and smiling. I'll give it to you. Don't. I'm afraid you'll molest me. Han Qian told the truth, but unfortunately no one believed it. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 382. Unable to return home, Han Qian took advantage of the three women to get together and talk about business. He walked into the Liancheng team's office and met Yang Lan, who had just come from a meeting at Glory. Yang Lan tilted his head and looked at Han Qian said softly. Come to work. Han Qian smiled awkwardly. Looking at his smile, Yang Lan knew that Han Qian was here to be lazy. She opened the door of her office and led Han Qian in. Yang Lan pointed to her position and motioned for Han Qian to come over. After playing, he picked up the shower head and poured water on 2 pots of flowers. These 2 pots of flowers were considered Yang Ian's lifeblood, so he moved them to the Honor General Department without feeling tired. The disabled Han Qian was tinkering with the computer, very absorbed in it. After a while, Yang Lan prepared a cup of warm water and a box of medicine and put them on the table, and said softly. Mr. Yan, Dr. Yan said that you were left in her office. She asked me to bring you over and watch you take the medicine. Han Qian, why did Mr. Yan suddenly become Director Yan? Did you download the game? If you get caught, go first. Han Qian raised his head and said with a naive smile. Nothing to do, let's play for a while. Go play outside. I thought you had something serious to do. Li Dongsheng just happened to leave, and his seat is vacant. I still have to work. Have you had lunch? Han Qian stood up and drank the medicine, nodded with a smile, pointed to the computer outside the office, and whispered. Then I'll go out for fun. Don't disturb everyone's work, just play quietly by yourself. Okay. Han Qian also likes to play games. It should be said that no man doesn't like it. It's just that the addiction is different. Qianwan and Miss Yalai brought back a lot of snacks when they came back. They bought a lot and there was no room to put them on the table. He sat on Li Dongshen's table and watched Han Qian sitting there. Everyone ignored him and focused on the work in hand. Han Qian downloaded games while eating. In the eyes of everyone, they thought this little ancestor was working seriously. An hour later, Yao Shui realized something was wrong first, bumped Li Li with her elbow and whispered. Han Qian has so much work in his hands. Why is that injured arm still used? Miss Yalai glanced at Han Qian, shook her head in confusion, and said softly. I heard from Suliang that Han Qian has nothing to be busy with now. He is so thoughtful and we can't guess. Wan, you and Han Qian are familiar with each other. Do you think he, Wan? While talking, Li Li found that Qian Wan was looking at Han Qian's hand, his eyes were straightened, and there was water flowing vaguely from the corner of his mouth. Yao Shui also noticed that something was wrong with Qian Wan, and reached out and patted Qian Wan's shoulder gently, saying softly Road. Wan. Ah. Qian Wan turned her head blankly. Yao Shui pointed at Han Qian and asked in a low voice. Han Qian is working like this and his head and arms are injured. Can he bear it? Qian Wan resisted exposing Han Qian, took a deep breath and spoke softly. Let me go over and persuade him. As an experienced gamer, you could tell what he was doing just by looking at the position of his hands on the keyboard. Qian Wan slid her chair to Han Qian's side, looked at the screen seriously, and frowned. Shadow Demon blowing the wind? Do you want to fight? Who will be the C in your lineup? Can you still do it with your crippled arm? Han Qian carefully controlled the hero in his hand and whispered. Isn't there an enemy spell? I originally wanted to play Puck, but typing with one hand was too slow, so I just picked this thing up and haven't played it for a long time. As he spoke, Han Qian was shown off by Parker across from him. Parker even mocked him after killing someone. Younger brother. This made Han Qian unhappy, and Qian Wan immediately spoke. I'm going to teach this Parker how to be a man. Han Qian didn't believe in evil, so he insisted on doing it again. Without waiting for the blow, the opponent's Parker activated BKB instantly. Han Qian gave up treatment on the spot. Who could stand this naked BKB? Seeing Han Qian's hands leave the keyboard, Qian Wan raised her foot and kicked Han Qian's chair aside. She took control of the Dota game. Han Qian humbly studied again, and Shadow Demon was no longer clumsy. He wandered around the map and did not forget to taunt after killing local heroes. Bitch, Daddy teaches you how to be a good person. Aren't the claws divided into half? If you can't do it, just use your dog instead. Sold mineral water bottles for a week and came to the internet cafe to play for an hour just to increase the number of kills for Dad. Han Qian kept nodding aside. Whether it was operation or ridicule, he and Qian Wan were not on the same level. Then within 10 minutes, Yang Lan appeared next to Qian Wan without anyone noticing and knocked lightly. Knocking on the table, Qian Wan sighed helplessly and got up obediently to go back to work. After Qian Wan left, Yang Lan stretched out her hand and grabbed Han Qian's ear, whispering angrily. I told you to play by yourself. If I catch you again, don't play anymore. Try playing a game with one hand instead. Why are you still playing like this? After Han Qian was scolded for a moment, the opponent knocked out GG and the game was over. Seeing Yang Lan leave, Han Qian quietly opened another game and chose alchemy. He got into the jungle in 10 minutes and never came out again. At a huge disadvantage, his teammates began to rant. Zeus, is this alchemist a bastard? Tauren Chief, retreat from alchemy, one more for you is not more, and one for you less is not more. When Alchemy walked out of the jungle carrying the holy sword and won 3 kills in the first team battle in his life, his teammates started again. Zeus, Nutu, please show some respect to my elder brother and retreat. Tauren Chief, big brother, that's my dad, Dad, look where this eye is inserted. Zeus, Dad. Tauren Chief, Dad Alchemist, this is your grandson. Han Qian was so amused that he couldn't stand up straight. He watched these two guys' condolences to each other's relatives in the game. Han Qian didn't say anything, and he was swinging around with his holy sword, chopping melons and vegetables. Anyway, he was just passing the time with nothing to do. Let's play. After his second consecutive victory, Han Qian closed the game. He still wanted to play, but his arm had started to rebel and he could no longer play. Then Han Qian went to dunk landlord. In short, he didn't do anything serious. Eating potato chips, drinking Coke, and fighting with landlords. Everyone in the group knew a little bit about Han Qian's identity and basically ignored his existence. However, Han Qian made Daqian restless and wanted to open Dota and play 2 games, but whenever she was about to get close to Han Qian, she would find Yang Lan. While staring at her, Qianwan raised her hands and prayed to Buddha. Sister Yang, why don't you go back to the general department gracefully? Never mind. Qianwan can't return to glory, and she can't pass her aunt's test. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the vice president of glory came to the team's office. Chang Xiang's staff cheered up and worked hard, hoping to be appreciated by the vice president. Looking at the working attitude of the big guys, they felt warm and satisfied. They looked left and right. He slowly walked up to Han Qian and knocked on the table gently. Han Qian raised his head and said doubtfully, "What's wrong?" Nuan looked at the computer desktop not far away, gritted his teeth and whispered, "Go home." "What?" I said. "Go home." Nuan let out a low chuckle, and everyone in the group turned to look at Vice President Wen. The Vice President asked Han Qian to go home. Go home together? Han Qian turned off the computer and handed the Coke on the table to Wen Nuan, saying casually, "I can't cook tonight, why don't we go out to eat?" Casual. "Let's go, everyone is busy, I'm going to get off work first." In the confused eyes of Chang Xiang's staff, Han Qian and Wen Nuan left. As soon as they left, the group exploded. The glorious Yao Shui grabbed Li Li's arm and shook it. Han Qian. Vice President Wen, go home? Are they? Li Li didn't know how to introduce this relationship, so Qianwan pouted and whispered. The relationship between ex-husband and ex-wife, Sister Yang, I also want to get off work. Yao Shui was stunned. Han Qian was Vice President Wen's ex-husband.